Hello, I'm Levi, the Garage Movie Guy. Today I'm going to bring you another top 5 list. This time I'm going to talk about my top 5 sports movies. A few months ago, I recorded this top 5 for Rudy, San Antonio's unofficial movie critic. He asked me to create a video for his channel, Rudy's Movie Reviews, where I talked about my top 5 sports films. For my number 5 sports film, I went with a movie that is kind of more science fiction film than sports film, but I chose it because the sport featured in it has always stuck with me. I'm talking about 1975's Rollerball, starring James Caan. Please do not confuse this with the early 2000s remake. That movie is horrible. Don't watch it. Rollerball takes place in the near future, the year 2018. In this world, corporations have effectively replaced nations. These corporations no longer have wars, they have rollerball games. One of the most powerful corporations and one of the best rollerball teams in the world is the Houston Energy Corporation, of which Jonathan E. is their star player. And before we go on, I'll explain real quick what rollerball is. You take a softball-sized steel ball, take it around a roller rink, and try to put it in this little magnetic hole. Meanwhile, the other team has skaters with spikes on their gloves and spikes on their helmets and motorcycles to get them up to speed, stop the other team by any means necessary. There's lots of injuries, people are put into comas, some people even die playing this game. And in that sense, it's a lot like the gladiatorial fights of old. And I think the reason I put this film on my top 5 sports list is because there are 3 rollerball matches shown in the film, and throughout the film, the rules get stripped away. And by the time we get to the final round, there are no substitutions and an unlimited clock, which effectively makes this last man standing wins. Another reason I like this movie in relation to sports is because I think it sort of examines some things that have been brought to light lately, with major sports leagues coming under investigation for all kinds of corruption, dubious practices for the health of their players. All that is found in Rollerball. Of course, it's cranked up to unbelievable levels. That's why this is a science fiction film, but that's why Rollerball is my number 5 sports film. For my number 4 sports movie, I had to go a little bit lighter, so I went to 1992 for the streetball comedy White Men Can't Jump. The film stars Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson as streetball hustlers in Venice Beach. They team up for a hustle together, alliances are broken, people's feelings get hurt, and as with any great 90s film, the plot just spins off its axis and we spend a good chunk of the movie in a round of Jeopardy, the TV show.
Gloria.
What is a quiche?
Yes.
I mean, if that doesn't sell you, what will? But the movie is so 90s, from the clothes to even the insults.
Well, your mother's so poor, I seen her kicking can down the street. I said, what you doing? She said, moving.
It's just an entertaining movie, and it features basketball, which is one of the few sports that I have actually played. So that might be why I have so much affection for this number 4 film on my list, White Man Can't Jump. For my third pick, I'm going to go from the street to the rink, but I'm going to keep the laughs going with the 1977 hockey classic Slapshot, starring Paul Newman. This movie chronicles the struggles of a fictional minor league hockey team, the Charleston Chiefs. They're not very good and they're not winning games, but when the possibility of being sold to an owner in sunny California comes up, they decide it's time to win. But they don't win by playing good hockey, they win by playing mind games and fighting and fighting and fighting. They even bring in some ringers in the form of the Hanson brothers, not those Hansons, those Hansons. But at one point they have to clean up their act and win legitimately, and that's when this becomes a little bit of a Cinderella story, and that's one reason I have it as number 3 on my top sports films. Another reason I have this movie on my list is because I feel like it accurately depicts the struggle that minor league teams have. These guys don't make big bucks, but they still put their body on the line for this game, and there is a real possibility that the team could just fold and they lose their jobs. And I feel like Slapshot presents this struggle in a better way than I've seen in any other film. I think the depiction of the fans in this film is also very accurate. Minor league teams have some very rabid fans and they'll follow the team anywhere. That said, this movie is a couple of hours of locker room talk, but if you can stomach that, there are a lot of good one-liners and there's a really good story there. And that's why I've got Slapshot at number 3. For my number 2 film, I'm going to go back to the only sport that I've played competitively as an adult. I was in a league called the Marmots and Nihilists. It was a bowling league. And of course, I'm talking about the 1998 Coen Brothers film, The Big Lebowski, starring Jeff Bridges and John Goodman. And I can hear it now. I can hear the cheers and I can hear the groans. I know this movie is very polarizing. I happen to love this film, but today I'm not here to advocate The Big Lebowski as a good film. I'm here to tell you that The Big Lebowski is a great bowling film. I think it's difficult to deny with all the lingering shots of the bowling alley and just how much time we spend there, the Coens have some sort of love for this game. And I think besides that, this film has influenced how people bowl. It's hard to go bowling with a large group of people and at some point not hear a Big Lebowski line thrown out. Over the line!
I'm throwing rocks tonight.
And like I said, I was in a bowling league called Marmots and Nihilists, which is a direct reference to the film.
Oh, nice marmot.
And I probably wouldn't have ever been in a bowling league if it wasn't for The Big Lebowski. But that's all I'll say right now for my number 2 pick, The Big Lebowski. For my number 1 sports film of all time, I chose Raging Bull, directed by Martin Scorsese and starring Robert De Niro. It was released in 1980, that's the same year I was born. It's a biopic, but I'm not interested in how accurate or inaccurate it is to the life of Jake LaMotta. When I saw this movie, it opened up the world of cinema as art for me. This movie and a handful of others really got me excited about movies, not just experiencing them, but looking at them as pieces of art and looking at the craft behind it. Apparently when Scorsese made this movie, he didn't know anything about boxing, but it's obvious that he knows something about filmmaking. He very carefully choreographed the actors during the boxing scenes so that he could use one camera. He wanted to feel like the camera was a third fighter in the ring. And Robert De Niro's part in this film can't be denied. He gained 60 pounds, and the real Jake LaMotta actually said that he would have sponsored Robert De Niro if he wanted a boxing career. And on top of that, you have the beautiful cinematography by the DP, Michael Chapman, and the tight editing by Thelma Schoonmaker, and the sound effects, the score. Everything layers together to make these beautiful scenes. It's almost like a brutal ballet when you see these men fighting each other. And when I first saw this film, I was amazed that someone could make boxing look so beautiful. And that's why Raging Bull is my number 1 sports movie. Now, before I wrap up, I do have 2 honorable mentions. The first is The Wrestler from 2008. It was directed by Darren Aronofsky and stars Mickey Rourke. It's about an aging professional wrestler and about how this sport has not only brutalized his body, but it's sort of destroyed his personal life. I thought I had a lot in common with Raging Bull, so I didn't add it to this list. And the final movie I want to mention today is one that I almost put in my number 1 slot, but I really couldn't push Raging Bull out of there because it's so wrapped up in my love of cinema and my journey to discover cinema, I couldn't take it out of there. But the film is The Hustler from 1961. It also stars Paul Newman and features Jackie Gleason as Minnesota Fats, and George C. Scott is in there as well. It's a precursor to The Color of Money. Paul Newman plays the same character, Fast Eddie Felson. Jackie Gleason was apparently quite the hustler in his day, and he did all his own trick shots, and Paul Newman had never played pool before, but he played every day for months. He did almost all of his own trick shots in the film. So there it is, one last sports movie that you should check out. Do you agree with my picks? Do you think some of them are way off base or out of left field? I apologize for that. Let me know down in the comments what you think, what you agree with. What are your top 5? Once again, I want to thank Rudy, San Antonio's unofficial movie critic, for having me on his channel. This was a ton of fun, and I hope we can do more collaborations in the future. And you out there, if this is your first time to see my content and you want to subscribe and see more, then there's probably a circle somewhere up here with a GMR. That's my channel. But until next time, I'm Levi, the Garage Movie Guy, saying, see you in my garage. Us Texas movie critics gotta stick together. Old-time hockey coach. And I didn't even pick a baseball film. My number 1 sports movie of all time is son of a